Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go! Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. It is 10 p.m. Thursday evening, and we are here live on Studio A. Yeah, you've waited all week for the most cutting-edge topics and guests, and now it is time to deliver. That's right, it's the Steven D Kelley Show with your host, Steven D Kelley.
Hey everybody, good evening, welcome to the show, 7 p.m. California time, 10 p.m. East Coast time. This is the Steven D Kelley Show. I'm your host, Steven D Kelley. This is Revolution Radio, www.freedomslips.com. Topic of our show tonight is the Clinton body count, an accounting of Bill and Hillary's staggering trail of corpses. Anyway, no guest, it's just going to be me, and hopefully we'll be able to do this. And I want to say a few things before I dive into this material, because it is staggering. But again, when I choose programs like this, when I choose subject matter, sometimes it's because I didn't have a good guest, or it was just either way, it's inspired. It's and I think, hey, I got to do this. And I'll tell you, a lot of times when I do these shows, they are controversial. Certainly, they're inflammatory, and they don't make me popular with the NSA or the CIA or any of these people. Certainly, you know, we certainly do go against government, this and that, quite a bit. Tonight is no exception. By taking on the issue of murders attributed to the Clinton legacy, if you will. And when I say Clinton legacy, obviously Bill is probably the one that most associated with stuff, but Hillary is right up there with him, and the fact that she's desiring to be president makes it all very relevant that we discuss these schemes and subsequent deaths of people involved, for things that she was very heavily involved in, and of course she has plenty of people that. Died as a result of direct involvement with Hillary specifically. So we're going to cover all that stuff. But again, when we say Clintons, we're talking about both of them, and we'll try to get into the details. We're going to try to go through the list, and then maybe go back and talk about some of the, go farther and more in depth on some of the issues, like, for instance, Whitewater. What was Whitewater all about? It was a real estate scandal. And again, there's other scandals. Inslaw is something that I was just doing a little research before the show, and that's fascinating because it actually involved computer software and installing back doors. And back in the 90s, when this stuff was an issue and in the news, back doors on computers and software wasn't a big issue like it is today with the the surveillance and the covert stuff that's going on with our computers and our internet. Now, a few people have suggested that this is a partisan smear campaign or an attack on Hillary Clinton per se, and this is like as if to suggest that I would care about one party, and by attacking this woman, I'm somehow helping Jeb Bush and the Bush dynasty and all their crimes. Okay, this is not true, because to put this in a perspective, and just to to do this before I get started, I want to say that during the Bush dynasty, and I'm not saying Bush Senior, but I guess if you want to add both Bushes in together, the number of people that died was insane. And obviously 9/11, certainly you can just the 3,000 people that died, on 9/11, that of course was directly related to George Bush and his cabinet. And all of the million Iraqis and people from Afghanistan and such and what have you, people that died from the subsequent military campaigns, are their lives, their deaths can be directly attributed to Bush also. So again, I'm not trying to minimize the crimes of George Bush, and there's plenty of time to focus on that, but that's not what this is about. Tonight we're focusing on this. And the reason why we are doing this is because people do have very short memories. And the little scandals that we're going to talk about tonight that subsequently led to the execution of various witnesses and what have you are range in anything from working with real estate to inflate swampland to abusing the small business loans to pocket a bunch of money to Bill running around and screwing girls just they were getting pulled over by cops and the whole effort of silencing people that were threatening to leak that information down to the sexual escapades of even Hillary, who apparently was just as ravenous, if you will, with young women as Bill was back in those days. So there was quite a few people involved in that died. When they went out, and so in other words, while he was governor of Arkansas, it was certainly was run like a hillbilly mafia. And that's not to suggest that Bill and Hillary invented that sort of thing, because it's not true. Obviously, prior to the Clinton governorship, there were certainly corrupt politicians running that state for quite some time. I mean, if we can get into it tonight, I may bring up some of the previous administrations and some of the crazy things they did too. But suffice it to say is that Arkansas has a rich history of corrupt politicians doing crazy things. So Bill was certainly no exception. One of the other things, of course, that we're going to talk about is the drug dealing. Obviously, Mena Airport in Arkansas was a hub of the massive amounts of, not just weapons that were going south. We've had Tosh Plumley on the show several times, and we've talked about the gun running and how this is a big part of the politics of the whole country, and the big part of the CIA and the NSA and everything that they do. And certainly Bill Clinton was very much involved in that in Mena, Arkansas, being the governor at the time. And so just one of the many scandals that they were involved in, and obviously when I say they, I'm including Hillary and everything, because she certainly was his right hand in all of these ventures, was all the cocaine coming in and the weapons going out. So crazy amounts of things. Again, we are going to get into details, but again, also Bill Clinton was very much involved with the Chinese transfer of technology to the Chinese, bringing weapons in, and all sorts of illegal campaign financing. But so anyway, so it goes really deep. And again, like I said, I'm going to get started right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to present these people in groups of the. Well, I'm going to organize them by who they are. Like, for instance, witnesses will be on one group, women, will be in another group, campaign finance people, contributors, security guard detail, that kind of thing. All the bodyguards that have been killed. I mean, there's a long list of bodyguards that have been killed. We'll present them all at the same time. And again, I do highly recommend that people do more research, and if possible, even actually write down these names of people and the dates, if at all possible, because had I really decided to write a book on this, and again, I'm probably going to, this after the show, my research will continue, because I'll build a video and I'll attach JPEGs of the various people that we're talking about, and I'm sure in the process of that I'll learn a little bit more. But again, this has been excellent research just for myself. I have learned quite a bit, and it's just amazing how something that's seemingly 20 years old can still be so topical and so pertinent today. So. Before I get started, I just want to remind everybody real quick that Revolution Radio is listener-supported radio, and if you can go to our homepage, there is a donate button on the left side of the page, little blue button that says donate. Go there. It'll tell you how to use your PayPal, your credit card, or whatever if you would like to send money and help out Revolution Radio. Also, please join the Revolution Radio Facebook page if you have not done that. It's definitely a good way to keep up with the different shows that are happening. And I would personally appreciate it if you did that, just because I asked you. So please do that. Okay, here we go. Let me see. I think that's probably good enough. Again, disclaimers. I don't think I really need any disclaimers, but let's just suffice it to say that if you were to go to Snopes and look at this information, they would say that it was all fraudulent, every bit of it. And so that's got to tell you something right there. But if you really dive into these things, and I'll tell you, even the information I'm going to present tonight is going to be extremely filtered. I mean, it's going to be just the top edge of the complete story. Some of the stories we're going to dive into a little bit more deeper, but you're going to see that, people that came in died in plane crashes had bullet wounds, or people supposedly committed suicide that had a similar type of bullet wounds in the back of their head, little things like that. So it's very difficult to cover all these forensic details, but we'll do our best. Okay, the first guy we're going to mention here is James McDougal. Now, McDougal was involved, of course, with the Clintons. He was very close with the Clintons in the Whitewater incident, which we're going to discuss. But he basically he was sent to jail. The reason why we're going to mention James McDougal first because he died relatively recently. And again, more people have died recently. We're going to add people to the list, but he died in March 8th of 1998, and he was in federal prison, and he was under medical watch. And but he was still testifying before the Kenneth Starr grand jury, which was doing the whole Monica Lewinsky thing and probing all the other Clinton scandals. But he was getting ready to testify, and right before he was ready to testify, the standoff in Waco just happened. Okay, and because of that, everybody that was watching over him ran off and to cover this story that was happening going down in Waco, which is a big deal that we'll talk about that happened during the Clinton thing. But during this time, he supposedly suffered a heart attack while in solitary confinement. All right, and he was left alone, so nobody was, and he was in a medical ward, so you'd think they'd be watching for that sort of thing. But instead of attempting to defibrillate his heart with equipment that they, of course, had on hand, they drove him to some, let me see, it was St. Peter's Smith Hospital, which is a welfare hospital out in the boondocks where they let the interns practice on the deadbeats. So anyway, they went out of their way to try to hope, make sure that this guy was going to die. But it turned out that cause of death was traced to an injection of Lasix, which is a diuretic. And they found this in his, they supposedly were giving this to him. They actually gave this to him because they use it to force prisoners to give urine samples for drug testing, even though this guy was not a drug case. He was not in there for that. But, that's ostensibly in a jail. That's what they would give this to people for. If they're trying to get a urine sample out of somebody forcibly, they'd give them a shot of this Lasix. Well, one of the things is, though, is that they knew that he had a pre-existing condition for blood clots or circular clots. So he had some serious cardio issues, and basically the Lasix would have caused his death. So they're saying that he was on digitalis, which cannot be combined with Lasix. So obviously they knew what they were doing when they shot him full of that. But the thing is that he was getting ready. He had nothing left. He was dying, right? He didn't have any hopes of getting out of jail. So he was getting ready to spill his guts, and they took him out. All right, some of these guys are somewhat obscure, but we'll get into the good stuff. Okay, Sandy Hume is the next on this list. And again, there's a lot of lists out there of these people, and some people put other people on top of the list. And I didn't really have time to go through this and redo it all chronologically, but these are still pretty well-known cases for their day, if anybody's old enough to remember when these things actually happened. But Sandy Hume died on February 22nd, 1998, and he was the 28-year-old son of journalist Britt Hume, television journalist, and he had just gotten a job with the Fox News TV, and I guess this is before Fox got as big as it is today, but he had a reputation for taking the stories that nobody else wanted to take. And the rumor was that he was about to break a story confirming that the White House was using investigators to dig up dirt on critics. And anyway, needless to say, what happened? He was reportedly found dead in his Virginia home of an apparent suicide. And at the time of this happened, there was a complete media blackout. Nobody talked about it. There's no scrutiny whatsoever. Uh, but anyway, but nobody. If you called the police, they wouldn't give you any information. And it turned out that he had this. The doctor that performed the autopsy is a guy named James Beyer, Beyer, and his name is going to come up over and over because you'll see in a lot of these mysterious deaths that this is the guy that does the autopsy. So he has a record of concealing homicides behind the suicide ruling. So we'll watch out for this guy. But let's see. Apparently he also was involved in the Vince Foster case. And of course we'll get to Vince Foster because he's probably one of the biggest so-called suicides that was directly associated with Hillary Clinton. Okay, Ron Miller. Okay, this guy's sort of obscure, but he died October 12th, 1997. And he had a company which was called Gage Corp, and it was being sold to another company, but he was somehow involved in a thing where he had tape recorded conversations between Gene and Nora Lum. And these characters, I believe, were Chinese, could have been Indonesian, I can't recall, but they were involved in some serious campaign finance improprieties. They were funneling money to various individuals in the Clinton administration. And in this particular one, the guy that, this Ron Miller guy who owned this company, he had hired the son, Michael Brown, who is the son of Ron Brown, who was the Commerce Secretary at the time, and was also former chairman of the Democratic National Committee. So he was head of the DNC during the Clinton campaign, and after the campaign he was made Commerce Secretary. But right away he was involved in scandal. He was given this job at this his son was given this job at this company so that they could funnel money through this company to the son to be given to the father. And apparently there was some amount of $60,000 that had gone through the company to Ron Brown. Okay, I mean, this doesn't sound like a lot nowadays, $60,000, but back in '93 or whatever, I guess it was a little bit more money. When it comes to politicians filling their pockets, it all adds up. But Ron Brown, of course, obviously is another victim. We'll discuss him, but clearly he was. You'll see that as the dirt starts to fly, it gets, one person turns up dead because they saw something, and then next thing you know, witnesses that start coming forward, they start dropping off dead. And it's a chain reaction, it's a domino effect, and you're going to see that over and over again with these people that we're talking about. Okay, here's a good one. Mary Mahoney. Okay, now, Mary Mahoney was a White House intern. She died 7/97. The thing that's interesting about Mary Mahoney is that, she was working as an assistant manager at a Starbucks coffee shop in Georgetown. And the thing is that there was another Clinton, whatever it was, associate named Mike Isikoff. I believe that's how I pronounce it, but Isikoff. And he was getting ready, he was dropping hints in the media that there was a White House staffer with the initial M that was about to go public with her story of sexual harassment at the White House, at the White House. And just days later, gunmen entered the Starbucks after they were cleaning up after their closing. Now, if you go to Snopes, they'll try to tell you that this was just a robbery that went bad and what have you, but the details of the case are kind of important. I mean, they make it look like either way. If you say it's a conspiracy, at the very least, somebody wanted this Mary Mahoney girl really, really dead because she got shot all over the place. Unlike the other, everybody in that Starbucks was executed, but this Mary Mahoney girl got it at least 5 times. Okay, some people tried to say that, the story goes that she tried to wrestle with the guys and tried to escape and tried to take their gun away and all this stuff. So they just totally, made a mess of her. But bottom line is that there were two other people there, an 18-year-old and a 25-year-old, and they were taken to the back room and shot. And of course, Mary Mahoney was the manager. But a total of 10 shots were fired, and none of them were heard by neighbors. And this is a densely populated section of Georgetown. She was shot in the chest, in her face, and in the back of the head. So, little overkill. There was more than $4,000 in the store, and yet they said it was a robbery, but they didn't touch the money. So now there's others. This story doesn't go away. This continues, and there's updates, of course, too. But there was no signs of forced entry, which means that it was somebody let the people in, and it was somebody that they must have known. So who knows? Could have been somebody involved with the White House came to the door, and she opened the door. But anyway, the door was locked afterwards. After the shooting, the door was locked. When the bodies were found inside the next morning, inside of a locked establishment. So I mean, who does that? What robbers do that? And also, just out of coincidence, George Stephanopoulos, who of course is a media commentator now, was press person, I think, for him back in the day. Monica Lewinsky and Chelsea Clinton were all regulars at that Starbucks. Now, it also turns out that on August 1998, another young female government intern with the initial M, a girl named Christine Mirzayan, sounds Persian, was murdered. She was beaten to death with a heavy object near Georgetown University. Okay, so anyway, so it looks like they were trying to figure out who this M girl was, but you got to wonder, besides Monica Lewinsky, how many other interns was Clinton, enjoying having relations? How many other interns was Clinton not having sex with? Ha ha ha. Anyway, but needless to say, that was one of the first ones, of course, that was involved with the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And needless to say, Monica Lewinsky, of course, came out just shortly thereafter, and that was before they knew about her. Vince Foster. Now again, I'm just going to bring him up right now, talk to him, because of course he is. The thing about Vince Foster is that at the time of his death, he was the highest-ranking government official to die since Kennedy. Okay, just to put this into perspective, when Vince Foster died, he was whatever he was, his position in government. He was the highest-ranking government official to die in office like that since the Kennedy assassination. So that sort of puts this into, you think, yeah, Vince Foster, nobody even remembers him, but just, on a scale of importance, that puts it into a little perspective. Okay, now Vince Foster, of course, again, was very connected to Hillary, and very connected. They actually were romantically connected. And he worked together with her at the Rose Law Firm. So, even when she was when Bill was in office in Washington, they say that when he went, overseas, or when he was gone, that Vince Foster spent, quite a bit of time with Hillary. But and again, we'll get into that, his connection of just how deeply he was. But the bottom line is that he ended up out in a park with a bullet wound in his head, and it was kind of like he left for lunch, and he was getting ready to be indicted, or he was getting ready to have to testify, I believe, in the kind of Star thing. But there was all sorts of crazy things with it in his autopsy. Inconsistency with the hole in his skull, with the way the blood patterns were. With the mud on his shoes and things like, or there wasn't on his shoes. It was all very, very strange. That this guy would be way off this path. But anyway, here we go. I mean, Vince Foster, of course. Again, we're going to talk about him more. But bottom line, this is a man that everybody knows was probably the closest, the biggest number one lover of Hillary, and he died because it was all coming out. And if he did commit suicide, obviously he had things to hide, and he was worried about it unraveling. More than likely, he did not do that. He was suicided, but certainly he was a very, very high-ranking person that his testimony could have brought down the Clinton White House for sure. Next biggest ranking person to go down during that time was Admiral Jeremy Bourda, Chief of Naval Command, or Naval Operations. He died May 16th, 1996. He supposedly went home for lunch and decided to shoot himself in the chest. Not once, but twice, which is, again, not the easiest thing to do if anybody knows anything about shooting a handgun. It's kind of hard to pull the trigger twice after you've taken a hit. But he allegedly killed himself over the scandal involving some decorations that came out that people were trying to say that he was wearing a special decoration that he had not earned, and he was so distraught about this humiliation that he went and did this. But of course, it turned out later that he had earned these decorations. It was all nonsense. So there was something else going on. But I suspect if we dig into his death that we're going to see that he was connected to the whole gun running business. And I'm sure if we had Tosh on, he'd say, oh, yeah, he was connected to that whole business, because we're also going to talk about Colonel Sabo and a few other people like that who were directly connected to the gun running and the drug smuggling, and they're all dead too. But again, Admiral Jeremy Bourda was certainly very high-ranking. But we should mention that he supposedly left 2 suicide notes, and that's about it. But here's another big one. William Colby. William Colby was the director of the CIA. He died, former director of the CIA. He was retired. He was actually retired when he died, but of course that was interesting in itself. Okay, anyway, he died. We're not exactly sure when he died because, of course, they found the body, and who knows when exactly time of death was. But it was roughly in April something, 1996. Now, obviously, William Colby, CIA guy, was involved in quite a few things, and he knew quite a few things. And if you look at the history of people that are leaders of the CIA, you'll see that very often they do, when they retire, they die prematurely. Obviously, George Bush Sr. has not had that happen to him, but it has happened before. This is not the first CIA director to meet an untimely death. He was 76 when he died, let's see, at the time of his death, yes. And a lot of people were concerned that he, at 76, that he was getting ready to divulge too many secrets. Apparently, he already had a reputation for divulging information and being very cooperative with congressional investigations and stuff like that. So that wasn't a good thing. But he lived by the water. There was a river right behind him, and he liked to canoe. Okay, and allegedly this is what happened: is he died in a canoe accident. I know there's a lot of movies out there. There's so many times they'll have movies that spoof this, where the government person will be fishing or in a canoe or something like that, and the bad guy will come out and drown him. Well, this is exactly what happened. But everyone says that this guy was extremely tidy. I'm sure he was a very anal person. And when the police, before they found the body, of course, they found his home unlocked, his computer on, partly eating dinner on the table. And the official story, of course, is he just put down his fork and decided to drop everything and go out for a canoe, ride out in the water, which obviously is a joke. The other thing, of course, is that when eventually they found the body, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but he didn't have a life vest on, which, of course, he was the sort of guy he would have, if he was on his canoe, he would have had a vest on. But there also was a connection with the Vince Foster suicide, apparently, because he was a consultant, even as a retired CIA intelligence guy, he was also a consultant for a firm apparently that was involved in the Vince Foster, doing an investigation of the Vince Foster suicide, and they had basically come out and they had three handwriting experts who basically came out and investigated the suicide note and said that it was a forgery, and they actually said it was very bad forgery. So that probably was right there was a good reason for them to go back and say time to get rid of this guy. But I mean, obviously he had a lot of enemies. He was very heavily involved in the Vietnam War with Project Phoenix, which resulted in 20,000 Vietnamese casualties. But we don't think this is a Vietnamese hit. More than likely, the Vince Foster stuff was enough reason for him to become a target. But otherwise, I could just tell you that he did insist on going public about the agency's role, and this is interesting again because this again is a reoccurring subject. But in the 70s, he was talking to Congress about the necessity of going public about the CIA's role in tapping telephones and opening the mail of Americans, and such things as plotting the assassinate Fidel Castro. And another thing that's really interesting, that's cool, relating to things that are going on today, is that he also felt that it was very important that the American public become aware of the CIA's use of humans as guinea pigs for mind control experiments involving LSD. So here we have two things now that are very much on the minds of everybody today. That is the mind control, MK Ultra, electronic harassment, et cetera, and drug delivery systems, chemtrails, and everything else, sophisticated vaccines, who knows what, but also the wiretapping and the NSA surveillance and all the Edward Snowden stuff. I mean, we're going to see that this has been going on in a long time. This is, of course, back in the 70s, but clearly it's definitely been going on for a long time. Okay, dead bodyguards. Okay, now, needless to say, when Bill Clinton would run around on his missions overseas, either to visit the troops or whatever, very often he would have a bodyguard detail. And very often this detail would be either Secret Service, obviously, or if he was in a war zone, he would have military escort, usually officers. If he's on, like one big famous one is when he was on the Roosevelt, which was an aircraft carrier, which was which was around Italy at the time. So he had a naval contingent of officers made up from personnel from the Roosevelt. But we're going to show right now, almost to the man, anytime somebody got involved in a bodyguard detail for Bill Clinton, they would turn up dead real soon thereafter. So, the idea, of course, is what the hell was Bill Clinton doing in Italy when that all his bodyguard detail gets killed? We know now with the Jeffrey Epstein scandals and the whole pedophilia scandal that's going on right now, that Bill Clinton has certainly been tied in with underage sexcapades, pedophilia, and who knows what, sex slaves and everything else. So more than likely, while he was in Italy, he participated in some illicit activity with women, no doubt, probably of a real sordid nature. And, because obviously if it's just a prostitute or something, it's like, what's the big deal, right? But apparently this was something beyond that, and it was so bad that all of the witnesses, i.e. the security detail, all end up dead. Okay, so this is going to be a reoccurring thing, and you'll see a lot of times when these guys get killed that their deaths are used to change policy and direct politics, like Waco, of course, is a perfect example of that. Anyway, dead bodyguards. Okay, we've got Major General William Robertson, Deputy Commanding General of V Corps of Europe. Colonel William Densberger, V Corps Chief of Operation and Plans. Colonel Robert Kelly, V Corps Chief of Intelligence. And Specialist Gary Rhodes, Crew Chief. They all died 2/23/93. They were all killed when their Army helicopter, which was a Black Hawk, crashed in Wiesbaden, Germany. No cause was ever determined. V Corps figured prominently in the U.S. Bosnia-Serbia peacekeeping operations, along with the carrier Roosevelt. These men and 8 others associated with Clinton's visit to the Roosevelt all died within 4 months of each other. And here's more of these guys. There's Steve Willis, Clinton bodyguard; Robert Williams, Clinton bodyguard; Conrad LeBleu, Clinton bodyguard; Todd McKenna, Clinton bodyguard. These guys died at Waco. They died in 2/28/93, and they were executed by gunfire in Waco. Now, for those of you that remember Waco incident, of course, this was the Branch Davidian compound that was destroyed, and everybody inside was incinerated. This was the Janet Reno escapade. But the whole thing was destroyed because supposedly the Branch Davidian side killed 4 of the ATF agents who were the first people to breach the buildings, supposedly. If you go back at the video, because we saw this all on TV, out of the 4 guys in their little SWAT gear, they're coming in a helicopter. They go in a second floor window. 3 guys get inside. We don't see anything. Another guy's like by the window or on the roof getting in, and he gets taken out. He gets shot. But what we don't see, and what you could prove, is that the bullets that were used, a lot of fire was used to kill these guys. But and I'll go into that quick. But I'll tell you one thing is that you could see that the 308 M60 machine gun that was mounted to the helicopter that these guys just deboarded was the gun actually firing down onto these men, into the guy on the roof, through the roof, and into the guys inside the building. But on top of that, all 4 of these guys were examined by a private doctor, and all died from nearly identical wounds to the left temple, so-called execution style, according to Linda Thompson. All right, who is this trying to call me at 323?
Oh, this is Rich Castaldo.
Yeah, hi, Rich. I'm not really taking calls right now until later on. Is there anything you want to say real quick before I let you go?
Oh, you're not taking calls? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, in a little bit, but not. It's still too early for that.
Oh, okay.
All right, we'll get back to you.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay. Anyway, let me see if I can remember where I was here. All right. Thank you. Yeah, everybody. This is hard for information to me to get through, and like I said, I'm going to probably want to go through and create a video with pictures and graphics and all sorts of things afterwards. So it's not really conducive to calls. If you do have a call, I'd like you to really have something significant to say, please. I certainly welcome that, but again, we were trying to focus on the information as much as possible. So where were we? Okay, Waco. Now, there's plenty of evidence from the video and what have you, forensic evidence that would suggest that none of these guys, these ATF agents, died from any gunfire coming from the Branch Davidians. Okay, that's that we know that. But all 4 of those guys, or 3 of those 4 guys, were assigned to Clinton's security detail during the course of his primary and general election. Now, Bill Clinton actually came out and said that publicly. He acknowledged that 3 of these guys worked that close to him. Now, the other guy, one of the guys, however, was from Little Rock, and he was let me see, he wasn't really an art. He was he had another connection, but he was not. It was something else. But it should be pointed out that also that 15 shots were fired from 6 separate weapons in and out of the room, into which 3 of the 4 agents had entered through a window. 4 of those shots were fired from an overhead helicopter, an agent outside the window firing an MP5, and they also threw a concussion grenade. So fired at least 2 of the shots were fired from inside the room. And again, autopsies of these agents, three had virtually identical wounds to the left temple, exited through the rear of the head, execution style. So the guy that was on the roof on the outside, he was taken out by the 30 or the 308 fired from the helicopter. But the three guys that went through the door, almost as soon as they went through the door, they were executed by somebody on the inside, plus all the other shots that came subsequently. So that is a very big conspiracy in itself. Because not only did Bill Clinton conveniently take out some witnesses, but he used that as an excuse to escalate more destruction on the Branch Davidians. And we're going to find out if you look into the Branch Davidian episode, because, again, more people will die after that event. You were going to find out that David Koresh was involved in the whole Mena, Arkansas drug smuggling and weapons gun running business. He had information involving that, so that's another reason why the Branch Davidian compound was being taken out, because they were very closely connected to what was going on in Mena, Arkansas. So it just gets thicker and thicker and thicker. Okay, here we go. Here's another guy, Alan Wicker. Okay, Alan G. Wicker. Okay, Alan G. Wicker oversaw Clinton's Secret Service detail. Now, in 1994, he was transferred from the Secret Service to a new office in Oklahoma City at the Alfred P. Murrah building. Okay, you can see where this is going, right? Anyway, and anybody knows anything about Oklahoma City, they know that every single ATF agent, every single federal employee that worked at that building got a mysterious page and basically told don't go to work that day. Well, poor Alan Wicker, he didn't get that page, so he went to work. And he was the only employee of the ATF that was in the building that died April 19th, 1995 at Oklahoma City. So you got to think, what did he see? You know, he'd see something and then, oh, we're going to transfer you to Oklahoma City, and next thing you know, he's a victim of the what happened over there. Another 5 Navy aviators, Clinton bodyguards, names not determined, but they all died in a crash of a E-2C Hawkeye in Italy. And the crash occurred shortly after the plane took off, or no, the plane was waved off. It was trying to land on the Roosevelt. Okay, remember, this is all connected to his visit on the Roosevelt. And supposedly they needed to land really bad, and they said, no, you can't land because the deck, there was a foul deck. So, but anyway, all 5 of these men on board that died were also part of Clinton's escort detail when he was there 2 weeks prior. Okay, and apparently 3 other men who had also flown Clinton to the Roosevelt for that visit also died later in a helicopter crash. So talk about, I mean, I don't know what he did when he was on Italy, when he went to spent time on that aircraft carrier. Out roughly 13 people, 13 witnesses, all military, and not just anybody, but a general, even some very high-ranking individuals from that ship were all taken out. Another Clinton bodyguard, Staff Sergeant Brian Haney. Another Clinton bodyguard, Marine Sergeant Tim Sable. Another bodyguard, Major William Barclay. Another bodyguard, Captain Scott Reynolds. They all died May 19th, 93. They all died when their helicopter crashed in the woods near Quantico, Virginia. Reporters were barred from the site. The head of the fire department responding to the crash said that security was tight. There were lots of Marines with guns everywhere. The Marines seized a videotape made by a firefighter. All 4 had escorted Clinton on his flight to the carrier Roosevelt shortly before their deaths. Again, you can only speculate what the hell happened. But now you're going to see a lot of people dying in crashes, airplane crashes. A lot of these are small crashes, and the thing is that it's very common for them to take out a whole plane full of people to get to one person. And one of the things they do that appears to be a reoccurring thing is that they have a way of making the fuel gauge register out of fuel, and then the pilot will usually nose downward and begin to descend, usually in a panic. And as soon as he points the nose down, the the device causes the fuel to actually completely shut off. And this apparently was a reoccurring thing, and I believe it's been done many, many times to execute people on airplanes. So they probably got some little device that does this that they've been using for a long time. Another thing that I'm going to bring up here is, and this is a big thing I learned tonight, is that this whole idea of getting in your car and having it rapidly accelerate like a rocket and smash into a tree or something, they've been doing that for a long time. You know, we've got these guys right now, and I'll bring him up. The actor, of course, that died, the guy from Fast and Furious, and then the other guy that was getting ready to disclose some information. Both those guys had suspicious circumstances where their cars raced down the street and crashed. Again, I'm going to bring up several instances, at least 3 prior to those 2, where the exact same thing happened. We are getting down to the last 10 minutes of the first hour of the show, and again, I'm barely halfway through the list of the dead here, so you guys are going to have to bear with me. But anyway, again, this is the Steven D Kelley Show. This is Revolution Radio, www.freedomslips.com. And I'm going to continue, and then towards the second half of the show, I might take some calls, but let me try to get through this as much as possible. Okay, so we talked about those guys that died on the plane. There was another Secret Service agent that died in a C-130 carrying presidential limos, but we don't really know what there wasn't much of that. That could have been who knows what. Okay, fundraisers. Many fundraisers for people who got money to the Clintons legally or illegally, usually illegally from foreign sources that they weren't supposed to do it. Obviously, if you know anything about the Clintons today, you'll know that they've taken in probably $500 million from outside foreign funding, and this, of course, is not cool if you're going to be using that money to run for president. But apparently, she uses it for travel and stuff. But it's still dirty as all hell because it's coming from foreign countries. Okay, fundraiser Victor Razor, C. Victor Razor II. He was the national finance co-chairman for Clinton for President campaign. Also, Montgomery Razor, son of Victor C. Razor II. Both men died in 7/30/92 in a private plane crash in Alaska en route to a fishing exhibition. Of course, the crash was blamed on the pilot, who survived. 5 other people on board the plane not connected to Clinton also died in the crash. Now, D.D. Myers, who I believe was a press secretary at the time, describes Razor as a major player in the Clinton organization. So he was also a chairman in a mobile telecom corp, of SkyTel Corp, which had they had big contracts with federal police agencies. Again, we don't know if that was connected, but now that we know about the surveillance and the backdoor of the electronic devices, I wouldn't be surprised if that was also one of the things that was going on with this guy. But he was a big shot, definitely, and he also served as the chairman of the Democratic National Committee and on the board of directors for Business Council, Center for National Policy, blah, 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 Democratic Leadership Conference. He was a big shot. And I'll tell you, and after in 93, they took his widow, Molly, and he made her to be his chief of protocol, and he also said that he publicly planned to nominate her for a ambassadorship. So again, that looked like somebody was getting paid off for something. Okay, we're going to hear music, and I'm going to keep going until I hear music. Paul Tully, Democratic National Committee political director. He was found dead in his hotel room, 9/24/92, in Little Rock, Arkansas, of unknown causes. No autopsy was allowed, and supposedly he was a dear friend and trusted advisor to Bill Clinton, author of several key strategies for Clinton and the Democratic Party. But again, unknown causes. They speculated it was from a heart attack or a stroke, but very vague, and not much we can say about that. Ed Wiley, real estate attorney, Clinton fundraiser, died 11/30/93, died of a shotgun blast to the head. His body was found in the woods in Virginia, and it was also ruled a suicide. No note was found. But He died on the same day that his wife was sexually assaulted in the White House by Bill Clinton, who was intimately involved in. He was also intimately involved in several Clinton fundraising events. Okay, so I'm sure that was just a coincidence. Maybe he was so upset about his wife. Who knows? Either way, Herschel Friday. He was an attorney and also a Clinton fundraiser. He died 3/1/94, and he died when his plane exploded. Again, causes unknown. Nobody really knows what happened. But again, I guess if you're a friend of the Clinton, probably a good idea to stay out of small planes. I mean, my God, they'll shoot down entire planes to take out one person. But that's one of the reasons why I won't get on a plane. Dwayne Garrett, radio host. Oh no, radio host. We're not safe. Also an Al Gore fundraiser. Okay, he had a show on KGO AM in San Francisco. But he was a campaign finance chairman for Dianne Feinstein, which is interesting because, I'll tell you for sure, she's dirty as all hell too. And she's definitely guilty of taking some money she shouldn't have taken. And also a friend and fundraiser for Al Gore. But according to his lawyer, Garrett's lawyer, he was under investigation for defrauding investors. And there was a talk of a deal to evade prosecution. And that, so I guess he was going to spill the dirt on somebody, probably Clinton. And needless to say, he said that he was going to go have a meeting with somebody at the San Francisco airport. And 3 hours later, he was found floating in the bay under the Golden Gate Bridge. So, very suspicious. There's another guy here, and this is kind of interesting. If you live in Arkansas or you lived in Arkansas, you'd know about this person. If you live outside of Arkansas, he's no big deal. But this guy's name was Luther Jerry Parks, and he was the head of Clinton's gubernatorial security team. He ran the security team when Clinton was running for governor. And he had a company called American Contract Services. It provided bodyguards. Now, apparently Clinton had owed him $81,000 for services rendered, providing security during his trip to the White House, or the governor mansion. And he was going public. He was starting to make some noise, and he was threatening to tell everybody. And in September 26th of 1993, he got hit. Somebody took a hit out on him, and basically what happened was he was driving. He was gunned down in his car at an intersection of somewhere near Jacksonville, Arkansas, near Little Rock, and he was shot through the rear window of his car. And then they pulled up and they blasted him through the driver's side right there. 3 more times with a 9mm. Of course, it says 3 more times, but I've got another report here. It says that, there's the music. I'll continue with him, and we'll get back to it again. This is the Steven D Kelley Show. We are on Revolution Radio, and this is the Clinton Body Count. We'll be right back in about 5 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Imagine. Just imagine. Imagine a world
where
every child and adult will have the opportunity to achieve their dreams.
I believe my inspiration is the answer.
My inspiration is the greatest light.
The greatest energy.
It was born when the universe was sparked into life.
It's within everything.
My inspiration transforms pain into happiness.
And failure into success.
My inspiration inspires lives.
It inspires lives.
It inspires human lives.
My inspiration is always shining like the sun.
But it doesn't mean that it's alive.
For centuries, my inspiration was in prison.
In prison.
In prison.
It doesn't belong there.
Its home is to be known to all people.
My inspiration is in trouble.
We are fighting for its life right now.
Right this moment.
This moment.
Millions all over the world want to go beyond their limitations.
Liberate their dreams and reach success. The failure of us all to be someone
is the biggest disease
of all time.
Each day our brothers and sisters die. Please help us to birth this inspiration to life.
And that will stop this disease.
Help us get the word out of our inspiration.
Help us.
Help us.
It's our shared belief for a better future beyond the horizon. Let's write the future.
Heroism is here.
Stand up and grasp it.
Stand up.
Stand up and grasp it.
Stand up. Stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up for the dreams of all people.
This is Nighthawk from Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And now is your time to stand up and make a difference or fade away.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and you will catch the Fenton Perspective. Brian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Okay. All right, well, I was right in the middle of talking about Luther Parks, who was head of Clinton's governor security team in Little Rock, who died in '93, and was known to have complained about being in fear of his life. And apparently, before he had died, his house was broken into, and all of his records that he had compiled, his dirt files, were stolen. Everything he had a dossier on Clinton with all his illegal activities that was taken. And he said that when the news of the discovery, his wife said that, reported later that when news of the discovery of Vincent Foster's body came out, when they found Vincent Foster's body, he basically said to his wife that Bill Clinton was cleaning house, and he grew very paranoid immediately thereafter, and obviously he had reason to be paranoid. Let's see, next guy on the list, James Bunch, an influential Texan. We don't really know what happened to him, but he died from a gunshot wound, supposedly suicide, similar to Vince Foster. And he was discovered to have had a little black book containing the names of many influential persons in Texas and Arkansas who visited certain prostitutes. So apparently he was taken out because he probably had information from his dealings with prostitutes that would have connected to Bill Clinton to various hookers. Big surprise. John Wilson, former Washington, D.C. council member. He died in 5/1893, and his death was an apparent suicide. He was found hanging, but he also claimed to have info on Whitewater and was threatening to talk. Big surprise. Okay, I want to talk about. They got the names kind of backwards, and I'm going to talk about. First, I'm going to talk about Kathy Ferguson. Okay, now Kathy Ferguson was the wife of Arkansas State Trooper Danny Ferguson. Now, she used to brag to her friends that her husband Danny used to ferry women to Bill Clinton, to then Governor Bill Clinton, and that he would actually pull women over for whatever infractions, tickets or whatnot, and they would have the option of either going to jail or having a trip to go visit Bill Clinton. And apparently this happened quite a bit. This woman used to brag about it. She was well known. She was a nurse in town, so she was well respected. But she also mentioned she was also a key witness testifying on behalf of Paula. Let me see, what was her name again? I don't know. Paula. Okay, well, Paula was, I got to remember her last name, but she was one of the women that did bring out a lawsuit against Bill Clinton for sexual harassment and whatnot. But she was, anyway, this woman was connected to that, and apparently Paula Jones, I believe it was. But anyway, she apparently she was one of these women who was arrested and given the opportunity to have sex with Bill Clinton in lieu of going to jail. And when she actually was driven out to go meet Bill Clinton, she said, forget it. And apparently this got Bill Clinton really pissed off. So it's amazing she's still alive. But the bottom line is that Kathy Ferguson, she left her husband, Danny Ferguson, and she was found in her living room with a bullet hole behind her ear, and it was, I believe it was her, gosh, I got to get this right. I'm not sure if it was her left or her right. Okay, behind her left ear. And the thing is that she was right-handed. So the idea that she could take a little handgun, like a little .22 or whatever, and stick it up, behind her ear, not her temple. Again, in the autopsy, they tried to say, the medical examiner said that it was shot in the temple, but it was not. It was shot in the left ear, which, of course, is an assassination method. And they say that it's ridiculous because she couldn't even put on makeup with her left hand. So it's not too logical that she would have shot herself in that particular portion of the side of her head. Also, being a nurse, it's highly illogical that she would have used a gun to shoot herself because, first of all, when it comes to suicides, women tend to not do that. They tend to use other methods, and certainly as a nurse, she had access to all sorts of medications, so the idea of her having to shoot herself is just preposterous. She would have probably used medication if she was going to kill herself. But let's see. I wanted to get to now she, after she left the state trooper Danny Ferguson, she was going to get married to a man named Bill Shelton. Okay, and Bill was her new boyfriend, her fiance. And after Kathy died, he was also very vocal about it. He made a stink about the situation, the circumstances of her death. And needless to say, it was roughly, let me see, what is it? Roughly, a couple weeks later. Let me see, is it Bill Shelton, Kathy's new boyfriend? Yeah, he was dead by June 9th. Okay. So May 10th to June 9th, it was barely a month later, he was dead of a similar small bullet hole behind his left ear. So how about that? And again, both of these people, or he also was coming public saying that he was that the woman had information regarding Bill Clinton and Paula Jones, and he was a corroborating witness for Paula Jones in her trial against Bill Clinton. And also, this is interesting, we should mention Larry Nichols is going to come up now. Of course, Larry Nichols, he even talks about having an attempt on his life, but Larry Nichols actually claims to be the hitman that worked on behalf of Bill and Hillary, running around cleaning up these messes and killing people. So that's very interesting. Okay, Gandhi Bao. Okay, Gandhi with a G. Okay, he was an attorney representing a Mr. Lassiter in a case concerning alleged financial misconduct. Okay, he died 1/8/94 of an alleged suicide jumping out of a window of a multi-story building. Of course, that's a recurring thing too. And apparently, Mr. Lassiter, who this guy was representing, was a close associate of then Governor Bill Clinton, who was later indicted on drug-related charges, among other things. And Baugh's law partner was also suicided 1 month later, 2/9/94. So again, we don't know what it was that they're trying to cover up, but they don't mess around. So there was another guy, and he was a dentist. He was a prominent dentist from Arkansas, and his name was Dr. Ronald Rogers. But he had also compiled some dirt, and he was witness to some sort of activity. And he died in a plane crash on his way to an interview with the London Sunday Telegraph. And supposedly he was going there on his way to meet with a reporter to reveal some dirt that he had compiled on the Clintons. So anyway, he died. Okay, here's another guy, Stanley Huggins. He was a partner in a Memphis law firm, and they were involved in investigating the Madison Guarantee. Now, of course, Madison Guarantee was the little piggy bank savings and loan in Arkansas that Bill Clinton and his cronies used for their fraudulent real estate dealings. Again, if we have time, and I don't really think we will, but if we have time, we'll talk about Whitewater and how they're basically able to take $40,000 worth of swampland and turn it into multi-million dollars worth of real estate with fraudulent paper trails going back and forth. And again, Hillary was very involved in this. Vince Foster is really involved in this. All the Clinton cronies were involved in this, and you'll see that when things start falling apart, that just about everybody involved in all that stuff starts dying off. But anyway. Okay, the guy that was investigating the Madison Guarantee, and he was reported to have succumbed to viral pneumonia, of course. And again, he's not the only one that dies that way. But he had a 300-page report that he had compiled, and it has never been released. So anyway, so to this day, I'm sure there's some pretty dirty stuff there. Okay, here's one that's relatively well known. Her name is Florence Martin. Now, Florence worked for the CIA. She was a subcontractor or an accountant subcontracting to the CIA. And this is related to the Barry Seal case, which, of course, was Maine, Arkansas, and drug smuggling and everything else. But she died of 3 gunshot wounds to the head. 3. Okay. At the time of her death, she had the account number and the PIN, the ID number for a bank account in the Cayman Islands under the name of Barry Seal, again, which is the drug smuggler, which held $1.4 million. Now, immediately following her death, that money was moved to someplace in the Virgin Islands. Calvin Walraven. Okay, Calvin was a 24-year-old guy, and he was a key witness in the Jocelyn Elders son's drug case. Jocelyn Elders, of course, was the Surgeon General under Bill Clinton. And her son was in trouble for, I'm not sure if it was marijuana or cocaine or what, but anyway, 10 days after her son was convicted of trafficking cocaine, well, there's the answer to my question, this Walraven guy was found dead in his apartment with a gunshot wound to his head. Okay. But then again, the police spokesman for Little Rock says that no foul play is suspected. Yeah, sure. Okay, following the Vincent Foster murder, his wife, Lisa Foster, married a guy named James Moody. And James Moody is a judge, was a judge in Arkansas. She married this guy on January 1996. And this is about the same time that Susan McDougal went to jail. Okay, so her and her husband both went to jail. But anyway, they were both very, very, very close Clinton compadres, and they both took a hit, and they both went to jail. But Judge Moore had a son named Neil who died in a car crash. And again, this is one of those mysterious car crashes. But the story is that Neil had discovered something very unsettling among his stepmother's private papers and was threatening to go public. So in other words, the son of the judge was snooping around the private whatever of Lisa Foster, the widow of Vince Foster, and found something incriminating or whatever, and was threatening to go public. Now, this was just prior to the beginning of the Democratic National Convention, and he was actually alleged to have been talking to Bob Woodward of Whitewater fame, of course, Watergate, of the Washington Post. And he was threatening to release a blockbuster story. Now, witnesses say that he was sitting in his car, Neil Moody was sitting in his car arguing with another person just prior to his car suddenly speeding off out of control and hitting a brick wall. Okay, so again, what happened, but we will see that is happens reoccurring. Here's another one. Johnny Franklin Lawton Jr. He died March 29, 1998. In the spring of 97, a tornado ripped through some junk cars parked at Johnny's transmission shop. He had a junkyard, and it caused the trunk of a car that was parked there to open. So basically the tornado, whatever, caused this trunk to open up. And subsequently, he discovered that it contained in this trunk of this junk car were records from Whitewater in it, including a copy of a $27,000 cashier's check drawn on Madison, that's the bank that the Clintons used as their private piggy bank, and payable to Bill Clinton. Okay, I mean, that's some pretty damning evidence, right? So right away he realized what he was looking at, and he turned in the box of documents over to the FBI. Big mistake. According to the police, Lawton and a friend of his hit a telephone pole at a high rate of speed after their car had become airborne and left the road. Bear in mind, they had only driven less than a quarter of a mile at the time of the impact. So in other words, this car accelerated and was able to reach such a high rate of speed within a quarter of a mile that it essentially went airborne and smashed into a telephone pole and killed him and his passenger. So again, this manner of death is similar to the single vehicle accidents that killed Paula Grober and Neil Moody, and as I mentioned earlier, probably Paul Walker and Michael Hastings, I believe, could be another example, a more modern example of this method of death. Okay, Colonel James Sabo, 1991, and of course he was the commandant over here at El Toro Air Base near me, and as we know from our talks with Tosh Plumley, that he was heavily involved in the I think he was probably trying to expose that the guns and drugs were running in and out of the base right there. But he died in 91, and he was supposedly about to blow the whistle on the gun running activity taking place at his base that he was stationed at. He was found in the backyard of his home with his head blown off with a shotgun. The Navy ruled it a suicide. In all, more than 40 deaths by individuals concerned with drug traffic on military bases have been declared suicides despite evidence that murder was involved. Again, we could have a whole show just on Colonel Sabo, but again, if you listen to my shows with Tosh Plumley, he talks about that extensively, so go back to the archives and listen to those. Eric Butera. Okay, Eric Butera was an informant who came forward offering information regarding the murder of White House intern Mary Mahoney. You remember her. Anyway, he basically went to the cops and said, "Hey, I've got information." And he was an informant. So they dealt with him by sending him into a crack house to make an undercover buy for the police. And needless to say, he was beaten to death. So, real smart. Don't tell him what you're going to do. Just do it. Maynard Webb, he owned a small aircraft repair business, and he had stumbled upon several aircraft whose tail numbers were being changed on a regular basis. Of course, this is in Mena, Arkansas. He was about to go public when he walked headfirst into a spinning propeller. Okay, dead women. We're getting into dead women now. Susan Coleman. Susan Coleman had an affair with Clinton when he was an attorney general, and she suicided. She was suicided with a gunshot wound to the back of her head. No autopsy allowed. She was also 7 months pregnant at the time of her death. And she had told friends it was Bill Clinton's baby. Anyway, she was 26 at the time of her death. Paula Grober. Paula Grober was Clinton's speech interpreter for the death. She died in a one-car accident, also one of those high-speed accelerate in like a jet into a wall or something. But her body was thrown 35 feet from the car, indicating a very high speed. And, of course, she was a very attractive woman. And she traveled extensively with Clinton from 1978 until her death in 92. And Clinton, through a spokesman, said that her death was a great personal loss. And he said that Hillary and I extend our sympathies to her family. So you can only imagine what happened there. Judy Gibbs. Judy Gibbs was a penthouse model and a hooker, but she died in 96, along with her sister Sharon. And she appeared in the 1979 issue of Penthouse and later worked at a bordello near Mena, Arkansas, which also ran blackmail operations with photos taken of the customers with their girls. How convenient. Apparently, Bill Clinton was a regular customer of Judy, and while cooperating with law enforcement in the drug investigation, Judy was burned alive when her house burned down. And in a sworn statement, Clinton's bodyguard, Jerry Spivey, related how he and the governor, when they were flying over her in a plane over her house, how Clinton had he pointed out the window, and he showed him a picture of her in a penthouse and pointed out the window where she lived. So clearly he knew where she lived at the very least. Investigators, dead investigators. Of course, there's quite a few investigators that died investigating various scandals involving the Clintons, but here's a few of them. Paul Wiltshire. Paul Wiltshire was a Washington-based attorney, and he was investigating gun running out of Mena, Arkansas. He was found dead on a toilet in his Washington apartment. No cause of death was ever reported. But at the time of the death, he was investigating the 1980 federal election campaign and drug gun running out of Mena, Arkansas, as well as the BATF assault on Waco. So apparently he was one of the people that was tying in the Waco assault as a cover-up for gun running out of Mena, Arkansas, like I had mentioned earlier. So as usual, you know, when they take these people out, there's many, many things that they're trying to hide. John Parnell Walker, he worked for the Resolution Trust Corp., which was a company in Washington, D.C. that essentially was investigating the scandals and the money, the shady dealings that are going on with the Clintons and the Whitewater fiasco and Madison Guarantee and Loan and all this. And again, we're not going to have time to cover this, but if any of you remember the banking bailout, the big bailout back then in those days, many of these little banks that were being used as piggy banks by these corrupt individuals were completely looted, and then the federal government came along and bailed them out and basically replenished all the money that was looted. And you'll see that a lot of these investigators that end up dead, it's usually after they go back and try to figure out who looted all the money. And obviously Clinton and Hillary, of course, both of them were very, very much involved in this looting process. And I know that without going into details, that Madison Guarantee, again, that bank in Arkansas that was their piggy bank, was looted for about $65 million. And again, that seems paltry compared to some of the scandals that are going on today, especially the Ponzi scandals like the Bernie Madoff stuff and what have you. But you got to understand, even if these are hillbilly hick mafia, you take a $40,000 investment and turn it into a $65 million theft. It takes many years and many people to pull something like that off, and that's exactly what these people were doing. But anyway, Mr. Parnell, he was sent from Washington to investigate the situation over there with Madison, and of course the case was being investigated in Kansas City. And of course, Kansas City is corrupt as all hell. It's total mafia over there. And as long as the case was being investigated in Kansas City, he couldn't get anything to happen. It was being stymied. So he worked very hard to get the case moved to Washington, D.C. And needless to say, as a result of his efforts, he mysteriously fell from his apartment balcony. I guess he was looking at apartments, and I'm not sure how high up it was, but it was pretty high up. And apparently there was a connection here, but the apartment that he was tossed out the window of had also been a secret getaway for where Vincent Foster used to hang out. So that's kind of a weird little tidbit. But anyway, yeah, he decided to see if he could fly, apparently. So that's a reoccurring thing. Okay, here's a big one right here. I mentioned him earlier, Ron Brown. He was the former chairman of the Democratic National Committee and also the Commerce Secretary under Clinton. Now, Ron Brown, of course, was involved in all sorts of economic nonsense, and he was being investigated pretty heavily. And again, I've got tons and tons of information on all of these guys, but I'm just going to try to cut through as much as I can because we're running out of time. But he died on May 3rd, 1996, along with 39 other people when his T-43, or converted 737 used by the Air Force, was carrying a group of people in Bosnia. And apparently it crashed en route to Dubrovnik Airport. But he was, like I said, he was on the verge of being indicted, and he was having publicly stated of his willingness to make a deal with prosecutors. So, needless to say, his death brought about the end of his ability to testify. But it should be noted, yes, obviously 39 other people died in this crash, which shows you that there's no limit to how many people they will sacrifice to get somebody they need to get. But there was an autopsy on his corpse, and they found that he had a puncture on the top of his head, not necessarily consistent with a bullet, but consistent with some sort of a device. So apparently he had whoever it was, something made sure that he was dead on board the plane. Now, there's more issues with the Commerce Department. Apparently, there's another woman, Barbara Weiss. Okay, she was the Commerce Department staffer. And she was involved in another scandal involving one of Clinton's big donors, a guy named John Huang. And if you guys, remember back in those days when all this stuff was going down, that this Huang guy was one of these Chinese non-American citizens who was funneling a bunch of money into the Clinton campaign, which was, of course, illegal because he's not an American citizen. But she was found in her office. By one report, she was found dead in her office, which was locked, of course, on the 4th floor of the Department of Commerce. And she was nude, supposedly, and covered with bruises. And no cause of death has ever been announced, although an autopsy, which was conducted with no next of kin being notified prior to it. And the autopsy, they said that the bruises were not from being beaten, but they gave no specific cause of what they could have come from. So, anyway, and there were no records of any sort of hospital visits or anything leading up to that, so obviously it was very, very suspicious. Oddly enough, following the discovery of her body, Bill Clinton made an unscheduled return to the White House from Camp David, claiming he needed a book of poetry in order to complete his inauguration speech. Yeah. Doesn't sound suspicious at all. And here's another commerce person, Charles Meisner. He was Assistant Secretary of Commerce for International Economic Policy. And following Ron Brown's death, John Huang was placed on a Commerce Department contract that allowed him to retain his security clearance, which is pretty crazy, by this John Meisner. Okay. Anyway, shortly thereafter, Charles Meisner died in a crash of a small plane. Of course. Okay, now we're going to get into some deaths involving the drug smuggling and activity in Mena, Arkansas. And two of the most famous ones that we're going to start with are the Henry Ives death, a.k.a. the train deaths. And these are two young men, a guy named Henry Ives and Don Henry. They're just teenagers in Arkansas. But the initial cause of death was reported that he died as a result of falling asleep on a railroad track in Arkansas in 1987. And again, this was reported by the state medical examiner, and this guy, the medical examiner's name is Fahmy Malak. And again, this is one of these guys that is known for reporting suicides as suicide, or these things as suicides. But needless to say, it was determined later on that Kevin died from a crushed skull prior to being placed on the tracks, and that Don had been stabbed in the back. Now, the rumors indicate that they may have stumbled upon something going on in Mena, the Mena drug operation. So the story is that somehow these two guys, these teenagers, were probably snooping around and saw something they weren't supposed to see, and they got executed. Okay, but the point is that it starts a domino effect. Okay, so right away, other people start dying as a result. A guy named Keith Coney, he said that he had information on the Ives Henry death, and he subsequently died on a motorcycle accident in 1988 while being chased by a car. That was ruled a traffic accident. Keith McCaskill said that he had information on the Ives Henry death, and he got himself stabbed to death in November 1988. He told his family that somebody was out to kill him, and he told them goodbye. Greg Collins also said he had information about the Ives Henry death, and he died from a gunshot wound or a gunshot blast to the face in January 1989, and it was declared a suicide. Paul Olson was a federal witness to an investigation to drug money corruption in Chicago politics. Paul had just finished 2 days of FBI interviews when his plane ride home crashed, killing Paul and 130 others on September 8th, 1994. September 15th, 1994, Tempe Tribune newspaper reported that the FBI suspected that a bomb had brought down the airplane. I mean, my God. 130 people to take out one person. Jeff Rhodes, he had also information on the deaths of Ives and Henry and McCaskill. His body was found burned in a trash dump on April 1989. He died of multiple gunshot wounds to the head, and there was some body mutilation. Specifically, his hands and feet had been partially sawn off, leading to the speculation that he was tortured prior to being killed. His body was then burned. James Milan also had information on the Ives and Henry death. He was decapitated. The state medical examiner, again, Fahmy Malek, originally ruled the death due to natural causes, claiming that the victim's small dog had eaten the head, which was later recovered from a trash bin several blocks away. Richard Winters. Winters was a suspect in the death of Henry and Ives, or Ives and Henry, and he had offered to cooperate, but he was killed by a shotgun blast to the face during a robbery, quote-unquote, in July 1989, which was subsequently proven to be a setup. Dan Harmon, the prosecutor who Winters reportedly made the offer to, has since been implicated in the Kevin Ives death and is now facing jail for running his office as a racket. So there you go. It was the cops themselves that killed these two. Jordan Kettleson. Kettleson also had information on the Ives and Henry death, and he was found shot to death in the front seat of his pickup June 1990. All right, Barry Seal, the infamous Barry Seal. Now, Barry Seal was a well-known gun runner, drug runner for the CIA, operating out of the Maine airport. And he kept very close contact with Bill Clinton. And, of course, if you talk to Tosh Plumlee, he'll tell you that these guys were delivering cocaine directly to Bill Clinton for his personal consumption. All right. Anyway, but he had a falling out with these guys for whatever reason. But and they basically they tossed him under the bus, and he was sentenced, and they told him that he had to live at a YMCA, and they also prohibited him from having any guns or being able to employ any kind of bodyguards or anything like that. So, needless to say, he was subsequently gunned down by machine gun fire in the parking lot of said YMCA. Now, he had tried to actually hire bodyguards, but for whatever reason, the bodyguard didn't make it that day. Just as an interesting sub-note, again, I've mentioned Tosh Plumlee several times. He's actually coming up, he's going to be involved in a movie, and Barry Seals is going to be played by Tom Cruise, and Tosh Plumlee is going to be played by none other than Forrest Gump. What's his face? Forrest Gump, you know. Anyway, Tom Hanks, the other Tom. Connected to Barry Seal, of course, there was an aircraft mechanic. They don't know his name, but he was the guy. He was Barry Seal's aircraft mechanic. He died in 1995 of an overdose of mouthwash. And anyway, local death said that it was obviously a homicide. There's also very miscellaneous deaths. We're getting down to the end here. And again, there's quite a few, but I can only take so much. In fact, if you want to call in, now's a good time to call in. Oh, Terry, give me that number again real quick. Studio A. Is that Hubble guy still alive? Vince Hubble, you guys, you're going to have to look into this because these people, yes, I believe Vince Hubble was Chelsea's dad, and Vince Hubble was the owner of the Rose Law Firm, and they say that Hillary Clinton was screwing Hubble in order to get a position at Rose Law Firm because they suspected that would be beneficial to Bill's political career. So that's some pretty dirty stuff. But yeah, I suspect that Hubble definitely is the father of Chelsea. Now, again, the Whitewater incident was basically land flipping, and it made a lot of people rich, flipping swampland. But there were quite a people that were swindled out of their savings because it was kind of a Ponzi scam. There was a guy named Don Adams. He died in 1997, but he was one of the people. He was a lawyer in Arkansas who got involved trying to help people who had been swindled. And needless to say, he subsequently turned up dead. So big surprise, you try to get to the bottom of where everybody's money went, and you turn up dead. Big surprise. Another guy named Jim Wilhite, he was the vice chairman of Arcala. and he had a one-person skiing accident, but he also had extensive ties with Bill Clinton and Mark McClarty, with whom he visited by telephone just hours before his death. Oh, here's a good one. Theodore Williams Jr. Okay, this is Betty Curry's brother. Now, Betty Curry, of course, was the presidential secretary to Bill Clinton. And when Betty Curry was going to be subpoenaed by the Star group to go testify about the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal, prior to that happening, her brother was killed. And basically, his car was run off the road, and he gets out of the car basically probably to see what the hell happened. Another car comes by and runs him over. And this all happened, the next morning. Bill Clinton tells her of the death, and then the same time this was going on, they were alerting that Monica Lewinsky was alerted to appear on a Paulus Jones witness list. Her brother had also been beaten shortly before Betty was to testify in the previous matter. So that's pretty wild. Okay, I'm going to go grab myself some water here. Okay, Inslaw deaths. Okay, Inslaw is another scandal. And of course, again, I recommend that you look it up. That's INSLAW. And I had to go back and research what Inslaw, because I remember when it happened, but I didn't. After doing a little research, I realized just how topical and how important this is. All right, so 831, real quick before I talk about Inslaw, what's going on? What can we?
I'm not hearing about John Jr. Great show.
Oh my God, we got to get to John Jr. Okay,
yeah.
I'll hurry up.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, Inslaw. Okay, now. Inslaw was a Washington-based computer software company, Washington, D.C., and some of the software they made was used by the Department of Justice. Of course, Webster Hubbell was the President Clinton's head of Justice Department, I believe, at the time. But it turns out that the CIA had installed backdoors into this software, and they actually had Wackenhut was the people that were involved that had done this. And of course, Wackenhut, they're very thick and heavy in Area 51. Also, it turned out that this was being used by Israel and some other countries for the purposes of espionage. So here we are all the way back in 1987 that we're finding early cases of software being installed with backdoors to allow for espionage, just like the NSA is doing so heavily right now with the whole Edward Snowden stuff. Okay, Larry Guerin, he was killed in February 1987 while investigating the Inslaw case. Alan Standorf, he was an employee of the NSA in electronics intelligence, and he was a source of information for Danny Casolaro, who was investigating Inslaw as well as BCCI, etc. His body, Standorf's body, was found in the backseat of a car at the Washington National Airport in 1991. Dennis Eisman, he was attorney with information on Inslaw. He was found shot to death April 5th, 1991. Danny Casolaro was a freelance reporter and a writer who was investigating the October surprise, Inslaw, and BCCI. Danny was found dead in a bathtub in a Sheraton hotel room in Martinsburg, Virginia, and he was staying in a hotel while keeping appointments with the D.C. area pertinent to his investigation. He was found with his wrist slashed, at least one, possibly both wrists were cut 10 times. All of his research materials were missing and have never been recovered. Ian Shapiro. Shapiro had supporting documentation for grand jury proceedings on the Inslaw case. His wife and 3 children were found murdered on November 1st, 1992 in their home. All died of gunshot wounds to the head. Ian's body was found several days later in a parked car in the Anza Borrego Desert. Cause of death, the ingestion of cyanide. Declared it a murder-suicide. And then it goes on and on. There's several here that are wounded in attempted murder. Gary Johnson, he had videotapes of Clinton entering Jennifer Flowers' apartment. The tapes were taken. Dennis Patrick, he was a court clerk, had millions of dollars laundered through his account at Lasser and Company without his knowledge. 4 attempts were made on his life. L.J. Davis, he was a reporter investigating the Clinton scandals. He was attacked in his hotel room in Little Rock. His notes were stolen. Larry Nichols, again, this was the so-called Clinton assassin. And he was a former official at the ADFA, and he's the author of the Clinton Chronicles. But he said he was the guy who he broke many of the Clinton scandals, but he's had several attempts in his life. Here's a guy, Russell Welch. He said he was infected by military-grade anthrax. The list goes on. You know, most recently, yes, thank you, caller, but when Hillary Clinton said that she wanted to become, she basically let it be known that she wanted to be a senator of New York. JFK Jr., who had seen what happened to his family, he knew what happened to people in his family when they got involved like that. He worked very hard to avoid it, but the one thing he could not stand by and watch was the carpetbagger Hillary Clinton coming into his state and taking over Senate. So he basically let it be known, and relatively privately, I believe he was talking to Alphonse D'Amato, who I believe was governor at the time, on the phone, and he expressed his desire to run for Senate to prevent that carpetbagger Hillary from getting in there. And shortly thereafter, within days, his plane, of course, crashed into the Atlantic Ocean off of the coast of Long Island. And again, we've seen so many of these plane crashes where they've wired the planes or done something to cause a malfunction. I personally believe that what happened with JFK Jr. was that Hillary Clinton, who again was First Lady at the time, or whatever it was she was very closely connected to Bill Richardson, who is now, of course, I believe, the governor of New Mexico, or at least he was for a while thereafter. He was head of the Department of Energy. And the Department of Energy, of course, controls all of the nuclear facilities, the government nuclear research facilities, as well as the top secret research facilities, sort of like the one on Long Island at Ridgecrest National Labs. So naturally, that is also connected to the facility underneath Camp Hero, which is referred to as Montauk. And that is where our East Coast Star Wars is located. And on that other devices, they have a charged particle beam and a plasma device that works in conjunction with a particle beam. And this was actually used to shoot down JFK Jr. to disable his plane. Now, we know that the same device was used to take out Flight 800 as well as Flight 990, which both went down in very similar locations right there off of the coast of Long Island. And obviously, again, both of those hits, if you will, were carried out by the Department of Energy at the request of whoever was president at the time. But yeah, that's so yeah, Hillary certainly has lots of blood on her hands. You can only imagine how many people would die if she was to get into office today. We look at what happened in Benghazi, of course, with the death of the Navy SEALs and what have you that were protecting the embassy, and of course the loss of Ambassador Stevens. And we know that that was very much connected to this gun running and the desire to ship weapons to ISIS and build ISIS into a credible military threat to Bashar Assad. So, you know, if we've learned anything tonight by looking at these stories of all these deaths, so many of them are connected to the drug trade. They are connected to the gun running, and these sort of things are going on today and have not stopped. And if anything, stories like what we have with Barry Seal and Colonel Sabo and even Gary Webb, who we didn't mention Gary Webb, of course, and so many other assassinations. I mean, clearly these are all connected. Now, I know a lot of these things could be considered extraneous and not that connected, but the thing is that all of the deaths, the untimely deaths that happened during that administration ultimately can be tied to that administration the same way as all of the deaths of the Iraqis and the Afghanis and what have you can be tied directly to George Bush and the policies of his administration. So Obama, of course, is no different, but I think it's important. So again, if anybody wants to call in real quick and say hello or make a comment before the end of the show, we've only got about 10 minutes before we go off the air. Now is the time to do it. The phone number is 347-688-2902. If you have any questions whatsoever, or if you can think of somebody important that I forgot, I mean, my God, I think we did at least 50 people here, and that's not including the collateral damage. You know, it's like, look at that one plane. There was 130 victims that were just collateral damage. Ron Brown, 37 people died when Ron Brown was taken out. But I'll tell you, all of these people, though, so many of them that were taken out, some of them were innocent victims that were trying to do the right thing, like the guy that found the records in the back of the car trunk. But some of them were certainly had their hands in the cookie jar, like Ron Brown and some of these other people. So, but it is sickening, and this is why it's important that, again, this information has been out on the internet for a long time. Most of it's been out there for 20 years. And bringing it out today, where all we can hope for is that it'll strike a chord. And certainly I think it is striking a chord somewhat. Again, a lot of people were so worried that I was going to have issues and not make it through the programming. What is so scary about Hillary Clinton? Seriously, it's like, Hillary's going to get me. I guess it's not going to happen. So what's next? All right, nobody's calling in. All right, well, anyway, again, this is the Steven D Kelley Show. My name is Steven D Kelley. You have been listening to the Clinton body count, an accounting of Bill and Hillary's staggering trail of corpses. This is Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com. We are 100% listener-supported radio, so if you've enjoyed the program tonight, please consider sending a donation to Revolution Radio. And, of course, there is a site support button on the homepage at www.freedomslips.com. It's on the left side of the page. It's a blue button that says Donate. Hit that. It tells you what to do. Also, again, join our Facebook page if you have not already. Very simple. Go to Facebook and do a search for either Revolution Radio or freedomslips.com. Very simple. I also have a room on my Facebook, Steven D. Kelley, of course. And if you go to Google and do a search for my name, Steven D. Kelley, the Facebook page will be the first thing that pops up, as well as previous shows and lectures that you can peruse at your leisure. Tonight's show I will try to have up on YouTube tomorrow, although if I put some time into it and try to connect faces to all of these names and add graphics, that'll definitely take a little bit more time. So if I do that, hopefully everyone will appreciate it, but bear in mind that it does take a lot of work to put that together. Oh, let's see, what have I left out? Gosh. If you have any ideas for future shows, please contact me. You can email me at my email, which is law17gun, LAW17GUN at AOL.com. I also have a book out. I'm going to take advantage of this because you guys aren't calling in. My book is called Cities Under the Plain. It is only available on Amazon Kindle right now, but you can download an app and read it on your computer if you want. It's about $7. It's cheap, but it's my life story, and if you help me out, every month, if I sell over $100 worth of books, they send me a check. If I don't sell $100, I get nothing. But and if you like what I'm doing, you want to help me out, you can also send funds to my PayPal, which is my name, Steven Kelley, and it's StevenKelley714@gmail.com, and that's my PayPal. If you want to send me a love offering or a donation to help feed my animals and keep me in shoes, that's a good thing, because obviously you're not popular when you do what I'm doing. But okay, well, I made it through the night without Hillary attacking me, and we haven't lost our server. Yay, Terry Joyce! So I thank Terry for helping me out. We made it, Terry. No server crash. How about that, huh? Oh, it looks like I've got a caller. Okay, caller, I don't see your phone number here, but 575, what's your name?
How you doing, Steve? It's Rob.
Hi, Rob. What's going on?
I just want to congratulate you on a great show. Thank you for being strong. Thank you for just putting it out on the table and just letting it go, being natural, being honest, and just telling it like it is. Terry, we got a strong man here. Steve, I'm just so proud of you, and I know Laura and the Justice Twins are jumping up and down, and we just want to thank you for your strength, and we just want you to know that you've got God's support and all our support, and Gaia, and every energy that is working to this positive direction. And I just want to thank you, Steve, and just from the bottom of my heart, you're a brother from another mother.
I was kind of wondering what Laura thought of all this information. It's kind of hardcore. I know when she was on the show, she called Hillary some names, but I think we really went into it a little bit tonight. So anyway, but I appreciate you calling. If anyone else wants to call, I think we've got about 2 minutes before it's over. Again, that's 347-688-2902. Terry, you've been awful quiet. Anything you want to say to anybody out there real quick?
You know what? I've just really enjoyed the show. I thought it was very informative, and
Hillary's gonna get you.
And it's been exciting to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
They're
really
very vindictive, huh?
What? I don't think so.
Okay.
What did I do? I just,
But anyway, like I said, I'll
Skype and
hopefully
stuff.
have the show up
Maybe I
here
posted
relatively soon. But I'll tell you, when I was trying to do research and locate images of some of these people who have died, it's really hard to find any pictures of these people. Guys like Ron Brown, of course, who are very public, you can find pictures of him. But some of these other more obscure people, like the woman from Starbucks, Mary Mahoney, you can't find a picture of her. Or this the wife of that state trooper. Let's see. Karen's trying to call in. Karen, I can't accept your call because I'm not producing the show. Sorry, Karen. I don't know if you can bring her in. Again, we've only got a couple minutes left, so if anybody wants to call in just to say hi, this is a good opportunity. I hope you guys enjoyed the show.
Yes, Steve, great show. Just wanted to add one other addition for future shows. I believe that Barry Seal had some strong connections with Zapata oil, and I believe that was kept in a secret file. And if we connect Zapata oil to a certain group of crime family, I guess that would probably start with the letter B.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good job for our friend over there at Veterans Today, Stu Webb. He'd be the guy for that job. That and Tosh Plumley, I think the two of them. All right, it looks like Karen's trying to come in here. Karen, are you going to talk about Bear Clan mothers here or something? I assume there's a Clinton connection. Doesn't look like she's going to make it in, Terry. But
Karen's
there you are. All right, Karen, you got your radio on in the background. What's up?
Yeah.
You're on, Karen.
Yeah, actually, I can. I just wanted to really thank you.
Oh, that's it. Sorry about that. All right, everybody. Again, thank you for tuning into the show. This is the Steven D Kelley Show. Good night. I'll see you next week. You're listening to Revolution Radio. Please help us out. Adios. Good night. Bye.
Okay.